In today's video, we have a variety of NHL news and rumors to discuss, including a signing, a buyout, a major update on the NHL players going to the Olympics, and we're going to discuss in the trade rumors section Jack Eichel, Vladimir Tarasenko, and how the Jesperi Kotkaniemi offer sheet might be holding things up, and what are the latest on those two star players. We'll get into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover here today. It's certainly going to be one of those videos where you listen close, pay close attention, because there's a lot of little tidbits here of important news. First up, we have a signing between the Ottawa Senators and young goaltender Filip Gustavsson, who we saw come on strong towards the end of last year during the Ottawa Senators. I guess you could call it their battle of goaltenders trying to stay healthy. They had a lot of guys going down with injury. Gustavsson was one of the guys who was able to remain the healthiest, get a lot of playing time. Looked really, really good, and certainly looked like he could actually be one of their main goalies here for the future. He gets a 2-year deal. The first year is a two-way contract, so he will have the flexibility of going to the minors if need be. Obviously, they do have Matt Murray and Anton Forsberg still under contract. Forsberg's only under contract for this coming year, so there could be a situation where Gustavsson might get some NHL time, but he can go down, which is nice to have that flexibility. And the second year is a one-way contract, so not the coming year, but the year after. They do likely expect him to be part of the goalie tandem at the NHL level, so I certainly think he's earned that. Good on him to kind of show what he was made of at the end of the year and see how much of a part of the future he can be for the Ottawa Senators. Now, we also have a player today that is on waivers for the purpose of a termination or contract buyout, and that's San Jose Sharks forward Ivan Chekhovich, who was a 2017 draft pick. He's been playing in North America for the last 4 years. Years 3 and 4 ago, he played in junior in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, was drafted in 2017 at a late 7th round pick. The last 2 years he's played pro hockey, but mostly at the San Jose Sharks American Hockey League affiliate. He has appeared in 4 games for the Sharks at the NHL level, but things haven't really been working out. He's 22, going on 23 now. Looks like he's likely heading back to sign in the KHL, so he's requested to be terminated from that contract so he can do that. So hard to say what the future holds for the young forward, if he'll ever make another attempt at the NHL or not. But this attempt so far hasn't quite worked out, and he's going back to play in Russia. Now, we also have a pretty significant update when it comes to the NHL players going to the Olympics. I've seen a variety of sources. I just saw an update from John Shannon on Twitter just a short time ago. Plus, before that, I believe it was late last night, we saw Emily Kaplan of ESPN have a pretty big update indicating that it looks like an announcement is fairly imminent. It could be coming today, but it very well could be tomorrow. It's like sometime in the next 24 to 48 hours here before the clock strikes September is essentially what we're looking at. Right now, one of the things that is appearing to be a condition is that all players going to the Olympics from the NHL will require to be vaccinated against COVID-19. That does appear to be one of the guidelines that's included here. It looks as though they have everything else worked out. I know one of the big ones was when it came to insurance and all that. That was a big sticking point. But I know the IOC had agreed to pay for players going to the qualifying games, but that was a much lower cost, lower risk, because there wasn't that many players really involved in that. But I assume that they must have agreed to cover that, or at least, whatever, because that was like the big hurdle they were trying to overcome. But at this point, we do expect NHL players to be attending the Olympics, and we should have confirmation of that sometime here. If not today, then possibly as early as tomorrow. So certainly we'll likely be doing a video on that, talking about how it's all going to work and what to expect from that once we get that news. Now, the other piece of news we got that was somewhat interesting. It looks as though the NHL is considering an outdoor game between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Sabres, likely like an afternoon matinee type of affair between the Maple Leafs and the Buffalo Sabres in Hamilton, Ontario. So that could be something that we see announced sometime before training camp. So I'm not quite clear if that's really not 100% official yet, but things are trending that that's likely going to be something that we see. And we should get confirmation of that here sometime in the next couple of weeks. And I would expect that the Sabres likely would be the home team in that in that game. Before we jump any further into today's content, we do need to pause for a moment and acknowledge the channel sponsor, Manscaped. Now, before we jump into today's trade talk, I do want to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping on all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. Also want to remind you today is August the 30th as I record this video. We still have our promotion running on our merchandise, which the hoodies have been the big seller. Today and tomorrow is the expiry. So after that, the current promo will be voided, and then, like I said, we'll likely be having a new one sometime not too far into the future, but for right now, that is going to be ending soon, so I just want to remind you of that. We've had a record month in August for sales for shirts and hoodies, so greatly appreciate all the support. I do have the graphic here you'll see on the screen with the current promo codes to get free shipping if you live in the U.S. or 10% off if you live in Canada, which is essentially I want to be able to offer free shipping to everybody, but I wasn't able to, so that 10% basically at least comes close to offsetting the shipping costs for Canadian viewers. So I certainly appreciate that. If you haven't had a chance to put your order in, certainly do so if you're considering it before the promotion expires. Now back into today's NHL rumors, I want to take a look at how things are being impacted here in the NHL between a few different players, but the offer sheet from Carolina to Montreal for Jesperi Kotkaniemi is really having an impact here. Obviously, the Montreal Canadiens have a very tough decision to make, but a couple of other things that are impacted here is, for starters, the Montreal Canadiens have a big decision to make, and now obviously are likely, having a more serious conversation about getting involved in the Jack Eichel sweepstakes, also in the Christian Dvorak sweepstakes, looking for another center, if they're seriously considering not matching the offer here for Kotkaniemi, which is something that's under serious consideration by the Montreal Canadiens. And then at the same time, the Carolina Hurricanes were also rumored to be in the mix, and some other players, including Vladimir Tarasenko. And obviously, if this offer sheet goes through, it's going to impact their ability to do other things as well. So obviously, by Montreal taking their time here, they kind of freeze up Carolina from doing other business. But at the same time, I don't think the Carolina Hurricanes really care. If they get the player here, then I think they'll be content to say that their offseason business is mostly all done. They may try to find a way to shed a little bit of money because obviously this will hurt their salary cap situation. But if they get some young player that they really are high on, then obviously they're okay doing that. But at the end of the day here, it's believed that if they get the player, they're likely going to be looking at trying to find a way to maybe move on from Jake Gardiner. But the big question around Gardiner is he healthy enough? Because he's had a lot of back issues the past couple of years, hasn't really been the same player like he used to be, putting up better offensive totals when he played for the Leafs. So Gardiner hasn't worked out really in Carolina at all, and it could be some really key dollars in the cap if they can find a way to move on from that, even if they have to retain a little bit of salary, but that is going to be tricky. There is also the possibility that he stays with the team, goes through training camp, and they put him through waivers. If he clears waivers, they can demote him to the minors, and then at that point, they can bury his contract and they can get just a little bit over $1 million relief. They currently also have more than enough forwards on the roster that they could demote one of their lower contracts, especially one of the two-way deals, and get up a little bit of extra cap space that way. So they could get, just shy of $2 million extra by making some moves that way. But obviously, trading Gardiner would be preferred from what we're seeing from Carolina Hurricanes reporters right now. But that's not going to be any kind of an easy move. But there was rumor that when it comes to Vladimir Tarasenko, that the remaining teams appeared to be, at least as of, say, right before this offer sheet kind of happened, was supposed to be the Rangers, the Islanders, and the Carolina Hurricanes. But obviously, the Hurricanes are going to be out here, and the Rangers are a team, according to recent reports, that are never really completely gave up on the notion of maybe trading for Tarasenko. Of course, we saw the Rangers and Blues complete a trade earlier this offseason, sending Pavel Buchnevich to the St. Louis Blues for Sammy Blais, some other pieces in there too. And, obviously there was no Tarasenko involved in the trade at that point, but apparently Chris Drury and the Rangers certainly do have interest, and they're considering finding ways here to kind of make some last-minute tweaks to their team ahead of the season. So, the Rangers could be a team if they don't get Eichel, and obviously things have changed here in that regard as well with the change in agent from Jack Eichel going from Peter Fish and Donatelli over to Pat Brisson. That changes the whole dynamic there. The Rangers might not really have as good of an opportunity now to land Eichel. And, of course, like I said, they might be one of the few remaining teams interested in Tarasenko. So that might be something that we see. But at the same time, you get the very secretive New York Islanders, who still haven't really revealed much of anything this offseason. And we still are waiting on word for Beauvillier, Sorokin. We assume they have deals lined up for Cizikas and Palmieri, etc. But again, we don't know the full terms. I mean, obviously these guys have not signed elsewhere, so clearly they're coming back to the New York Islanders. I don't think many people have any doubts about that. But what are the terms of the contract going to be? How much cap space does Lou really have to play with here? We really don't know. And like I said, it's been rumored for some time. According to Elliot Friedman, he felt that the main reason Lou was holding off announcing anything was because he was trying to make a big trade. And many thought that Tarasenko was that guy. And it might turn out to be that way. But obviously, he's turned out to be very patient in some aspects. But, at the same time, maybe he's just not getting what he wants either. It's hard to really say what's going on with the Islanders because there's just so much that's unknown, and they've done a terrific job, which Lou always does, of being secretive and not having anything leaked out. But obviously, the thing with the offer sheet, if that takes Carolina out of that potential running, then you're looking at, down to one or two teams. Lou's probably wise to wait on this because, if they get down to the point where they know like they're the only team that's kind of still left that's really interested, then he can use that as leverage to get himself a better deal. He doesn't have to worry about other teams outbidding him or that kind of stuff. So we'll see what the Blues and Tarasenko end up doing, as well as these other guys. But again, like I said, that offer sheet is impacting this deal too, just because it's taking away another team that was, heavily rumored to be interested, and knocks down a number of teams in on him. But when it comes to Jack Eichel, of course, there was some speculation on Twitter yesterday. Everybody, what things are like on social media. All it takes is somebody to post something and everybody gets all riled up. Eric Engels of Sportsnet had reported that he had confirmation that Jack Eichel was on a plane and on his way to Montreal. And that indeed did turn out to be true, except he wasn't going there to have nothing to do with the Montreal Canadiens. He was going to attend the BioSteel camp that's taking place there. But because of his injury, he's not going to be doing anything on ice. He'll only be doing the off-ice activities and stuff. But still, he is going to appear at an event in Montreal. So, of course, once people found out he was actually confirmed to be traveling there, had some hockey gear with them, they were really starting to speculate, is Marc Bergevin doing a 360 here and taking his compensation and going after Eichel? But for starters, that can't even be official yet anyway. I'm not saying that Bergevin couldn't be having conversations with the Sabres and Kevin Adams around Eichel about the extra compensation he could be getting for Kotkaniemi. That's a real possibility. Would not be shocking to find that out. However, until they announce their decision on the offer sheet and that Kotkaniemi decision is settled, and he would then officially become a member of the Hurricanes if they decide not to match. And then at that point, he would receive the compensation and then be able to consummate a deal for Eichel or whoever else he decides to try to land to replace him. But given the good relationship and long-term, real strong friendship between his agent, Pat Brisson, Eichel's new agent that is, and Marc Bergevin, and the fact that they're now suddenly going to be possibly in the market for a center, that certainly does change the whole dynamic in the Eichel sweepstakes. And I do think it's fair to say that, we can probably include Montreal as a more serious team to be involved in these conversations. However, at this point in time, we only have rumblings from NHL insiders saying that, Montreal has been involved to some degree in the past, and they haven't really been considered a team that was like super serious when it comes to Jack Eichel. But obviously other teams that we've talked about numerous times, like the Flames, the Rangers, the Ducks, the Wild, Obviously, at some point, we talked about the LA Kings, who are really not in the picture anymore. We talked about Columbus in there off and on, too. Like, there's a lot of teams that have been in the mix and in and out and more serious than Montreal. But like I said, just in the last 24 to 48 hours, suddenly the whole situation and whole dynamic has changed for Montreal. So I wouldn't completely rule this out. But the other thing, too, is not only does he throw another team in with some so all of a sudden, here's some really good-looking compensation. They're going to have 2 first-round picks next year. They're going to have 2 third-round picks next year. They already have other picks that they've been stockpiling. They have lots of young players that they could consider including. Like, the Habs could suddenly make a real serious, real solid offer and have one of the best chances to land him if they decide that that's something they want to be serious about and really go for it here. But if they don't, well, at the end of the day, I'm sure that other teams are looking at this saying we have another contender. Obviously, we have a situation where there's another team that are heavily in the mix, and that's going to certainly adjust the market here as well. So it's amazing how one thing can impact a variety of things in the NHL and kind of change the whole trade market dynamic and what's going on between various NHL teams. So we'll have to see what happens here, but until we get the news from Montreal on their decision for Kotkaniemi and whether or not they're going to match or not, and my gut feeling says they won't, then at that point we'll be able to move forward with that decision and see where these other players end up happening here. But at this point, I know when it comes to Tarasenko, there's probably like a 50-50 chance that he starts the year in St. Louis and gets moved later. When it comes to Jack Eichel, I really don't think the Sabres or the player really want that. We know with everything that's gone on in the recent agent change and all that, he certainly wants to get a deal done sooner than later. So we'll have to see what happens on that front. But let me know what your thoughts are and how the Kotkaniemi offer sheet is certainly impacting the trade market here as a whole right now while they try to get some other deals worked out. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.